The United States and its allies continue to target Russia's wealthiest people in an effort to put pressure on Vladimir Putin. Today, the Department of Justice announced a new task force targeting Russian assets in the U.S. President Biden has vowed to seize yachts, luxury homes, private jets, all in retaliation for Putin's actions. This is an attempt to cut Putin off from the rest of the world, especially when his latest move has some experts questioning his state of mind. And he is no stranger to violence and brutal tactics. In 2020, Putin's fiercest critic, Alexei Navalny, collapsed on a plane over Siberia. Doctors later say he was poisoned by a Soviet-era nerve agent. Tonight, there are growing concerns about Putin's motivations in Ukraine and also what he might do next. Correspondent Tom Negevin is live at a permanent mission, or live with the permanent mission of the Russian Federation in New York. Tom, tonight some experts wondering if Russia's leader has gone mad.
Yeah, and they point out, Marnie, that the campaign in Ukraine is not going by any measure the way Vladimir Putin expected it would. They say that is affecting him deeply and that history tells us a lot about what he's capable of.
Russia's best-known opposition leader and fierce Putin critic Alexei Navalny mysteriously poisoned in 2020, tonight calling on his fellow Russians to keep protesting a war unleashed by our obviously insane czar. Those protests have left thousands of Russians jailed at the direction of an ex-KGB agent whose enemies often find themselves in harm's way, like Russian defector Alexander Litvinenko, poisoned in London in 2006 with radioactive polonium, Ukrainian presidential candidate Viktor Yushchenko, poisoned with the dioxin used in Agent Orange, and Denis Voronenkov, a former Russian politician and Kremlin critic, shot on the street in 2017 while exiled in Ukraine. Now, analysts say, signs that a tough war there is affecting Putin's state of mind. He's accused of deploying banned weapons inside Ukraine while placing his country's nuclear arsenal on heightened alert.
I think he's partially lost his mind. I don't see this bright line between wholly rational and completely insane.
Experts here in the U.S. noting changes in the Russian leader. In recent appearances, he looks bloated and run down. They believe he's growing frustrated and even more unpredictable.
I guess the question is, how dangerous is the person they're dealing with right now?
He sees himself as a historic figure right now. And what he's doing in Ukraine is trying to go down in the history books, maybe to rewrite the end of the Cold War. And again, all of that is very, very dangerous. And it suggests that somebody who's not at all interested in a negotiated solution here.
And what's both fascinating and terrifying, Marnie, is that this is someone who twice in about the past week has threatened to turn this into a nuclear confrontation. And there is concern among some analysts globally, here in the West, NATO, the U.S., that he might actually pull the trigger in a limited way, at least. That would help him cling to power. Worth noting as well, Marnie, that as we talk about his violent legacy, there are already reports emerging from Ukraine that Chechen special forces have been involved in a failed attempt to assassinate Ukraine's current president, Vladimir Zelensky.
Scary thought. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.